Today, we're diving into a topic that might catch your attention. Subtle signs that could suggest a woman has multiple partners. Before we get into the specifics, let's take a step back and reflect on the broader context. Relationships, by their very nature, are complex, and navigating them requires patience, understanding, and, above all, communication. It's essential to approach this subject with sensitivity and respect for both yourself and the person you're involved with. After all, the intricacies of human behavior are never as simple as they may initially seem. Recognizing these signs might help you gain clarity in your relationship, but it's crucial to remember that assumptions can be dangerous. The absence of communication is often where misunderstandings begin, and without clear, open dialogue, things can quickly spiral into misinterpretation. Relationships are built on trust, and anything that chips away at that trust can lead to unnecessary conflict. Before we explore these signs, let's take a moment to reflect on some sage wisdom from Stoic philosophers. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoics, once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This reminds us that our approach to situations, particularly emotionally charged ones, must come from a place of clear thinking. In relationships, it's easy to let insecurity or jealousy cloud your judgment, but keeping your thoughts balanced and measured will allow for better decision-making. So, let's dive into the topic of subtle signs and ways to navigate these challenges with empathy and understanding. Grab a notebook, let your thoughts flow, and let's get started. One of the most notable signs to look for is an increased level of privacy with her phone. Now, this could be one of those signs that can easily be misinterpreted. Perhaps she's simply someone who values her privacy, or maybe she's trying to protect her personal space for reasons unrelated to infidelity. However, if you've noticed a sudden shift in her phone habits, like frequently hiding her screen, taking calls in another room, or becoming defensive when you ask about her messages, it could be an indication that she's trying to conceal something. In our digital age, our smartphones are the gateways to much of our personal lives. We store everything from our most intimate conversations as to our daily schedules and thoughts. As such, when someone becomes overly secretive with their phone, it might reflect an attempt to hide something. It could be conversations with other people, romantic interests, or even just an unwillingness to be transparent about aspects of their life. But before jumping to conclusions, remember that a wise Stoic philosopher, Seneca, once said, "A wise man will never be an expert on anything but his own self." In other words, we must be careful not to project our insecurities or assumptions onto others without fully understanding our own feelings and motivations. If you sense that something is off, it's important to have a direct, yet non-confrontational conversation. The key here is communication. Try to express how you're feeling, rather than accusing her of anything. For instance, you could say something like, "I've noticed that you've become more private with your phone lately, and it's made me feel a bit distant. Can we talk about it?" This opens the door for a constructive conversation without making her feel cornered or defensive. It also creates a safe space for her to be open and share her perspective. Another subtle sign to look for is changes in her behavior or emotional availability. When someone is seeing multiple people, they may struggle to be fully present in a relationship, either emotionally or physically. You might notice that she's distracted more often, seems distant, or is less emotionally available than she used to be. The emotional disconnect could be a result of her focus being divided among multiple people, leaving her unable to give her full attention to any one individual. In such a case, it's essential to approach the situation with a mindset of curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of immediately concluding that she's losing interest in you or emotionally withdrawing due to the presence of others, consider that there could be other explanations. Life can get busy, and we all go through phases where our energy is drained by external pressures, work, family, personal issues, etc. The key here is understanding what's truly behind the behavior. Again, as Epictetus wisely put it, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When navigating moments of emotional distance or change, it's important to give her space to explain. A conversation like, "I've been feeling a bit of distance between us lately, and I wanted to check in with you about it. Is everything okay?" opens the door to understanding without making her feel attacked. Being emotionally available yourself in these moments, without shutting down or becoming defensive, will also help foster an environment of openness. Another potential sign could be an increase in her social activities or outings. If she's suddenly spending more time out with friends, going to events, or traveling more frequently, it might be an indication that she's trying to maintain a level of independence and social interaction with multiple people. While this could be perfectly innocent, perhaps she's simply enjoying a new phase of life or reconnecting with old friends. It can also be a signal that she's not focusing as much on her relationship with you. In situations like this, remember the importance of balance in relationships. If her social life is growing at the expense of the time you spend together, it's worth having a conversation about the dynamics between you. A gentle approach works best here. "I've noticed you've been spending a lot of time out with friends lately. I think it's great that you're enjoying yourself, but I miss the time we used to spend together. Can we make more time for each other?" This approach emphasizes your need for connection, without sounding accusatory. Lastly, a noticeable change in intimacy could be another subtle sign to pay attention to. Intimacy is not just about physical connection, but also emotional closeness. If you notice a decline in either, whether that's a reduced desire for physical intimacy, a shift in how affectionate she is, or less openness about personal feelings, it might suggest that her attention is being divided. It's crucial to differentiate between a temporary dip in intimacy and a more permanent shift, which could be influenced by a variety of factors, including emotional fatigue or the presence of other romantic interests. Once again, the key is approaching the situation with empathy. It's possible that she's going through something internally, or maybe she feels overwhelmed by the demands of multiple relationships. Instead of making assumptions, ask her how she's feeling and if there's something you can do to support her emotionally. The goal here is to invite dialogue, not confrontation. One of the more subtle yet revealing signs that something might be shifting in the dynamics of your relationship is a sudden change in your partner's availability. If she begins to appear too busy or consistently has last-minute plans, it can create a sense of distance, even if the intention isn't to pull away. While it's completely normal for everyone to have personal commitments, hobbies, and a busy schedule, a noticeable change in how often you get to spend time together could be indicative of something more. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This idea can be particularly useful when navigating changes in your partner's availability. Instead of immediately jumping to conclusions or assuming that she is losing interest in the relationship, it's important to focus on how you react. Are you feeling frustrated, ignored, or neglected? Are you starting to feel that the emotional connection you once shared is being compromised? These feelings are completely valid, but they also offer an opportunity for self-reflection before any rash decisions are made. In relationships, time together is often seen as a measure of connection. Shared moments, whether they're spent doing something exciting or simply sitting together in quiet comfort, foster a sense of closeness. If she's suddenly harder to pin down, it might suggest that she's juggling multiple responsibilities or relationships. Whether it's work, family, or other obligations, managing a busy life can sometimes lead to the occasional lapse in the amount of time and energy one can invest in a romantic partner. But when this becomes a frequent issue, it can leave you feeling sidelined. If this is happening to you, try to assess your emotional response. Is the lack of availability making you feel insecure about the future of the relationship? Are you questioning her commitment or wondering if someone else might be taking up her time? These are natural questions to ask, but it's important not to let them drive your behavior in unhealthy directions. Instead of making assumptions or letting frustration build, take a moment to pause and reflect. Then consider initiating an open and non-confrontational conversation with her. You might say something like, "I've noticed we've been spending less time together lately, and I wanted to check in with you. I really enjoy our time together, and I just want to make sure we're both on the same page about how we're spending our time." This approach is rooted in honesty and vulnerability, but it also avoids blaming or accusing her. It allows her to explain her side of things, whether it's a busy schedule, personal challenges, or something else entirely. One of the cornerstones of any strong relationship is communication, especially when it comes to navigating difficult or uncomfortable situations. Opening up the dialogue about availability can help both of you understand each other's needs and expectations better. Maybe she's not aware that her sudden unavailability is making you feel distant. On the other hand, she may be going through her own stresses or challenges that are demanding her attention elsewhere. It's also important to remember that, as Marcus Aurelius wisely pointed out, you have power over your mind, not outside events. This is a reminder that we can't always control the external factors in our relationships, be it her work schedule, family obligations, or other commitments, but we can control how we respond, how we manage our own feelings of abandonment, frustration, or insecurity in such moments can either strengthen or weaken the relationship. By practicing emotional intelligence, you can choose to approach the situation with calm and clarity rather than reactionary emotion. Sometimes, the busy periods in life are temporary, and with a little time and communication, things may balance out again. However, if the pattern of unpredictability continues for an extended period and is significantly affecting the emotional well-being of the relationship, it's worth exploring whether these changes in availability are part of a larger shift in priorities. If this pattern becomes more entrenched and you begin to feel more neglected or disconnected, it could be a sign that both partners need to reevaluate their commitments, communicate more openly about needs, and realign their expectations. In such cases, it's important to ask yourself how you feel in the relationship overall. Are you feeling valued and prioritized, or are you constantly adjusting to her changing schedule? A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, effort, and the desire to prioritize each other. If you're feeling consistently overlooked or undervalued, it's crucial to communicate these feelings to your partner, and together, you can work towards finding a balance that honors both of your needs. Have you noticed a sudden shift in how she presents herself lately? Maybe she's started experimenting with a new style, hairstyle, or makeup that feels different from her usual look. At first glance, this change might spark a sense of curiosity, even concern, especially if it feels out of the blue. But it's essential to approach the situation with an open mind, as a shift in appearance doesn't necessarily indicate anything sinister or cause for alarm. It can be a healthy form of self-expression, an exploration of identity, or simply a reflection of personal growth. Many people, regardless of gender, go through phases where they want to redefine how they look or how they're perceived. It's not always about impressing others. Sometimes it's about impressing themselves. Just as you might change your wardrobe to match a new job or a personal milestone, she could be doing the same for entirely different reasons. A new haircut, a different outfit, or a more polished appearance may signal that she's embracing a fresh chapter in her life. The key here is recognizing that change is a normal and positive part of self-discovery, rather than something to fear or scrutinize. In moments like these, the wisdom of Stoic philosophers can offer a valuable perspective. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, believed that challenges and changes in our environment, like a shift in a partner's appearance, are opportunities for growth. Rather than reacting with suspicion or disappointment, you can view this as a chance to better understand who your partner is becoming. Instead of assuming that her change in appearance is an attempt to impress someone else, try to approach it with curiosity. Perhaps it's an expression of newfound confidence, or maybe she's just going through a phase of experimentation, much like how people sometimes reinvent themselves during a change in seasons or after major life events. It's understandable that you might feel a bit uncomfortable or even threatened by these changes, especially if they seem sudden or out of place. After all, if you're in a committed relationship, there can be an underlying fear that these changes might signal a disconnect or shift in how she feels about you. It's important to challenge these assumptions. As Seneca wisely wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." Instead of letting your mind wander into worst-case scenarios, address the situation with a clear, present mindset. Don't let your worries fester into doubt or mistrust. Instead, use this as an opportunity to open a conversation. A thoughtful and gentle way to start the conversation could be something like, "I've noticed you've been changing up your style lately, and I think it looks amazing. What's behind the new look?" This approach isn't about prying or accusing her of anything. It's simply an invitation for her to share her thoughts with you. It shows that you're interested in understanding her better and that you care about what's going on in her life, rather than jumping to conclusions. By framing the conversation in a positive, non-confrontational way, you create space for her to express herself. She might reveal that she's exploring a new side of her personality, or has simply felt like trying something different. Alternatively, she might share that this new look reflects an internal shift. Perhaps she's feeling more confident, empowered, or aligned with a personal goal. Whatever her reasons, listening with an open heart and mind will not only help you understand her better, but will also deepen the connection between you. However, if this change in appearance is accompanied by other signs, such as a noticeable decrease in affection, less time spent together, or a withdrawal from the relationship, then it's important to consider the broader context. A sudden shift in style, coupled with a shift in behavior, could indicate that something is amiss. It might be a reflection of emotional distance or internal struggles she's experiencing. In this case, it's even more crucial to communicate openly and honestly. Ask her about how she's feeling and if there's something on her mind that she hasn't shared with you yet. These conversations might be difficult, but they are also opportunities to address issues that might be causing stress or disconnection in the relationship. When you're in a relationship, small behaviors can sometimes raise big questions. One of these behaviors could be her texting habits. Does she send you messages at odd hours, late at night or early in the morning? Is she frequently texting someone, but when you ask, she hesitates to tell you who? While texting is a normal part of daily life, these habits can sometimes be a cause for concern, especially if they seem out of the ordinary. It's essential to recognize that, like anything else in a relationship, trust is built through openness and clear communication. If you start noticing these patterns, it doesn't necessarily mean something suspicious is going on, but it might be worth discussing. As the philosopher Seneca once noted, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Our minds can easily fill in the blanks with worst-case scenarios, especially when things aren't entirely clear. So, rather than letting these uncertainties fuel your imagination, try to approach the situation calmly and thoughtfully. In particular, late-night texting is a behavior that might raise flags. It's natural for people to check their phones. But if you're noticing that these messages are happening during times when you'd typically expect to be spending time together, whether it's late at night or during the early morning hours, it could lead to feelings of doubt or discomfort. That said, it's crucial not to jump to conclusions too quickly. People text for all sorts of reasons: work, friendships, family obligations, or even personal interests. Texting habits alone may not tell the full story. It's often the secrecy around these messages or the lack of transparency that triggers doubts. As the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus wisely said, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have over our lives. If you let your suspicions take over and allow uncertainty to dictate your thoughts, you might find yourself spiraling into unnecessary anxiety. Instead of allowing assumptions to cloud your judgment, approach the situation with a sense of calm and understanding. The first step is to have an open conversation with her. Rather than accusing or confronting her in a way that could feel combative, start with a gentle approach. A question like, "I've noticed you've been really active on your phone late at night. Is everything okay?" Can open the door to a conversation where your main focus is showing concern for her well-being. This creates a space for her to share what's going on, and it positions you as someone who is invested in understanding, rather than someone who is suspicious or confrontational. Such an approach fosters an atmosphere of trust and transparency, which is crucial in building a strong relationship. One of the most important things to remember when faced with this kind of uncertainty is that texting habits may be completely innocent. We live in a digital world where communication is instantaneous and people often text for reasons that have nothing to do with their relationship with you. If she's busy, she could simply be chatting with friends, family members, or colleagues, and that's perfectly normal. Context is key here. What's important is to gain clarity on the situation rather than jumping to conclusions based on the mere fact that she's texting a lot. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." In other words, how you choose to interpret the situation can either lead to unnecessary anxiety or allow you to approach it with a clear, level-headed perspective. Instead of focusing on her texting as a potential red flag, shift your attention to understanding the context of the conversations. If the messages are about mundane topics like work, family, or even plans with friends, there's likely nothing to worry about. However, if she becomes defensive or avoids answering questions about who she's texting or why, that might signal that there's something worth discussing. Transparency is vital in any relationship. If she's unwilling to share who she's communicating with, or if she avoids the topic altogether, it may be time to have a deeper conversation about boundaries, trust, and communication. When approaching her about your concerns, make sure to stay calm and respectful. Trust is fragile, and how you address the issue could have a significant impact on the relationship. For example, avoid making accusatory statements like, "Who are you texting at midnight?" which could make her feel defensive and shut down the conversation. Instead, express your feelings in a way that promotes an open dialogue. You could say, "I notice that you're often texting late, and it's been on my mind. Is there something you want to talk about?" This approach opens the door to mutual understanding, rather than creating an adversarial situation. It shows that you're interested in her feelings and that you're seeking to understand the full picture, not just assuming the worst. Having these kinds of conversations can actually be an opportunity to strengthen your relationship. By expressing your concerns honestly, you create a safe space for her to share her own thoughts and feelings. Transparency fosters intimacy, and being open about any insecurities or uncertainties you may have can create a deeper bond of trust between the two of you. Sometimes the fear of confrontation is what keeps people from addressing these types of issues. But avoiding the conversation usually only leads to further misunderstandings and unnecessary anxiety. In the end, it's not just about deciphering her texting habits. It's about building a relationship where both of you feel secure, valued, and trusted. Approach her with empathy and use the situation as an opportunity for growth and deeper connection. When you're both on the same page, you'll find that these kinds of concerns don't have to drive a wedge between you. Instead, they can lead to greater understanding and a stronger, more trusting bond. Let's delve into the topic of mysterious plans, a behavior that can sometimes fly under the radar but can reveal more about the state of your relationship than you might think. If she often mentions going out with friends but is vague about the details or doesn't extend an invitation to you, it's worth paying close attention to. We all need a certain degree of privacy and independence, but if her secrecy around plans becomes a recurring theme, it could suggest something more than just a simple need for space. While the need for personal time and friendships outside of the relationship is completely natural, it's the secrecy or lack of transparency that can begin to raise questions. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wisely said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In the context of relationships, this means that both partners should have the autonomy to enjoy their individual lives. However, this shouldn't come at the expense of mutual respect or communication. It's important to have a sense of clarity about the relationship and where you both stand. When she keeps her plans shrouded in mystery, it can stir feelings of insecurity. You might hear her talk about spending time with her friends, yet you're left with no details, no specifics about where she's going or what she's doing. If she doesn't include you in the narrative of her life, especially when it's a regular occurrence, it's natural for feelings of confusion and doubt to creep in. The lack of clarity can leave you in an emotional limbo, questioning not just her friendships, but the overall dynamic between the two of you. As Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, put it, "If a man does not know to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Relationships, like ships, need direction. If you're constantly left in the dark about her plans or activities, it's like sailing without a map or compass. You're unsure where the relationship is heading, and you might find yourself navigating through choppy emotional waters. In relationships, having transparency and clear communication about the future and present is key. It's vital to address this behavior rather than letting it fester. Insecurity and uncertainty can quickly build if these mysterious plans remain unexplained. If you find yourself in this situation, don't let the discomfort simmer. Have a conversation. Sometimes, simply asking about her plans can provide clarity. You might say something like, "I've noticed that you often mention going out with friends, but I don't always hear much about what's going on. I understand the need for your own space, but I'd like to be included in your life more, or at least know what's happening. When there's a lack of details, it leaves me feeling disconnected." This approach shows that you care about her time with friends, but it also lets her know that you value transparency. You're expressing your needs without being controlling or demanding, and that's important. She might just not realize that her secrecy is affecting you, or she could be unaware of how her behavior comes across. After all, people form friendships outside of romantic relationships for many reasons: mutual support, shared interests, or just a need for a little personal space. But if the secrecy becomes a consistent pattern, it's essential to evaluate whether this is a sign of emotional distance or a potential deeper connection with those friends. Reflect on how her actions make you feel. As Epictetus advises, the key is not to be disturbed by what you cannot control. It's important to first examine your emotions. Are you feeling insecure because of a pattern of secrecy, or are you simply craving more clarity? Understanding your own feelings and the root of your discomfort is crucial before jumping to conclusions. Once you've processed your feelings, approach the situation calmly and with an open heart. A clear, honest conversation can go a long way toward clearing up misunderstandings. If she's receptive and willing to share more about her activities and social life, it's a positive sign that she values your connection and wants to maintain open communication. It shows that she is open to sharing her life with you, and that transparency is a sign of trust and emotional investment. However, if she becomes defensive or dismissive when you try to talk about her secrecy, it could be a red flag. If she avoids discussing her plans or seems irritated by your need for clarity, it may indicate that she's not fully invested in being transparent with you. In such a case, trust your instincts and prioritize your mental well-being. A healthy relationship is built on mutual trust and respect, and if one partner consistently shuts down important conversations, it can create emotional distance. You deserve to feel secure in your relationship and to know where you stand, just as she deserves space and autonomy. In the end, addressing this behavior early on is crucial. It's about striking a balance between personal freedom and shared openness. When both partners can communicate honestly and openly about their lives, whether it's plans with friends or thoughts about the future, it deepens the connection and creates a stronger bond. Avoid letting confusion or assumptions fester, as they can erode the trust and closeness that form the foundation of a healthy relationship. Whether her secrecy is truly innocuous or a sign of something deeper, taking the time to discuss it will only strengthen the trust and understanding between you both. When it comes to relationships, intimacy is one of the most telling aspects of connection, and shifts in this area can often signal deeper emotional currents. Whether the change manifests as an increase or decrease in affection or physical closeness, it's important to recognize that these shifts can sometimes reflect more than just surface-level dynamics. For women, especially those navigating complex emotional landscapes or juggling multiple relationships, changes in intimacy can be a way of expressing internal conflicts or emotional strain. The key here is not to immediately interpret these changes as a personal affront, but rather as an invitation to understand what might be happening beneath the surface. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "You control your mind, not outside events." This reminder encourages us to approach the situation with calmness, patience, and a willingness to see beyond our immediate emotional reactions. Intimacy, both physical and emotional, is a delicate thing, and it requires both partners to approach it with vulnerability, openness, and understanding. If you notice a shift in how your partner engages with you, it's crucial to step back and assess the broader context. Is there more going on in her life than you are aware of? Has there been external stress, personal challenges, or changes in her emotional landscape that could be influencing her behavior? For example, if you find that she is pulling away during intimate moments, seems less engaged in physical affection, or perhaps even avoids emotional connection, it might suggest that her emotional energy is being spread thin across multiple commitments or relationships. This isn't a reflection of your worth, but rather an indication that her mental and emotional bandwidth may be stretched to the point where it feels difficult to invest in your relationship in the same way she once did. This can feel hurtful or confusing, especially if you interpret it as rejection. But it's important to recognize that this behavior might not be about you at all. Her shift in intimacy could stem from other pressures in her life, leaving her unable to fully show up in the relationship. On the other hand, if she suddenly becomes more affectionate, seeking out physical closeness or trying new ways to connect, this shift can leave you questioning her motives. Is she trying to rekindle the relationship, or is she overcompensating for emotional distance elsewhere in her life? The increase in affection might be an attempt to fill a gap, or it could be an indication of a genuine desire to reconnect and nurture the bond. Either way, it's crucial to stay open-minded and not rush to conclusions. The best way to navigate this ambiguity is through clear and open communication. In relationships, especially those that involve complexities like juggling multiple emotional investments, communication is essential. If intimacy begins to feel different, take the opportunity to engage in a deeper conversation with her. Share your observations and feelings honestly, but without judgment. Allow her to express her thoughts and concerns, and listen carefully. The goal is not to assign blame, but to better understand each other's perspectives and needs. It's also worth remembering that intimacy is not only physical. Emotional intimacy plays just as significant a role in fostering closeness and connection. If external pressures, be it from other relationships, work stress, or life challenges, are overwhelming her, it may affect her ability to be emotionally available to you. When this happens, intimacy becomes more difficult to maintain because emotional energy is being redirected elsewhere. In such moments, a compassionate approach is key. Make sure she knows that your relationship is a safe space where she can express her vulnerabilities, concerns, and feelings without fear of criticism. When she feels heard and understood, it becomes easier for her to reconnect with you on an emotional and physical level. However, if you notice that she becomes defensive, distant, or avoids discussing her feelings, there may be deeper issues at play. In some cases, this can signal a breakdown in trust, unaddressed conflicts, or unresolved emotional baggage. It's important not to push too hard, but also not to ignore the signs of distance. Sometimes, underlying issues need to be addressed before intimacy can be restored. Ultimately, the health of your intimate connection, whether physical, emotional, or both, requires consistent effort from both partners. Regular, honest communication helps both people feel seen, valued, and secure in the relationship. It's not always about immediate solutions or grand gestures, but rather about fostering an environment where both individuals feel comfortable enough to express their needs, desires, and concerns. Intimacy thrives in an atmosphere of mutual respect, understanding, and patience, and by maintaining these values, you both create a foundation for a stronger and more fulfilling connection over time. In relationships, one of the most powerful yet often overlooked tools we have is our intuition. Our gut feelings, those instinctual hunches, can be incredibly accurate when something is not quite right in a relationship. It's easy to brush off these feelings, thinking that they're just fleeting doubts or overreactions, but more often than not, our instincts pick up on things our conscious mind may not fully grasp. There's a profound truth in the ancient wisdom of the Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, who emphasized the importance of self-awareness and understanding the inner workings of our mind. Seneca famously said, "The mind is a place unto itself, and in it can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven." This insight is a reminder that our thoughts have the power to shape our perception of reality. And sometimes those thoughts, especially when they feel uneasy, are signaling something deeper. In relationships, especially when we sense a shift in someone's behavior, our intuition might be reacting to subtle cues, whether it's a change in tone, a lack of emotional availability, or a noticeable withdrawal. We may not be able to fully articulate why we feel off, but our bodies and minds are often processing small, unconscious details that trigger those feelings of discomfort. This could be anything from changes in communication patterns to an emotional distance that wasn't there before. It's essential to recognize that these feelings are worth paying attention to. Instead of simply dismissing them, we need to acknowledge them and explore what might be behind them. A key aspect of emotional intelligence in relationships is the ability to tune into those gut feelings and interpret them with curiosity rather than judgment. When you sense something is wrong, it's easy to go down a path of blame, suspicion, or anger. But these emotions often cloud the true message your gut is trying to send you. To build a deeper connection and mutual understanding with your partner, it's essential to approach such situations with an open mind and a willingness to have a vulnerable, honest conversation. You might find yourself thinking, "I feel like something's different between us," but you can't quite put your finger on it. Instead of allowing these feelings to fester, the best course of action is to express them openly but gently. For example, saying something like, "I've been sensing a change in our dynamic lately, and I'd like to talk about it. I'm not sure what's going on, but I want to make sure we're okay." This allows you to open the door for a meaningful discussion without making accusations or jumping to conclusions. It shifts the focus from pointing fingers to seeking clarity together. Remember, your gut feelings are not inherently a sign of something negative or nefarious. Sometimes they are a call for deeper connection, understanding, or even simply a conversation that's long overdue. Often our instincts are trying to protect us from potential harm, but they can also help guide us towards more authentic and open communication in relationships. If the issue is something significant, addressing it early can prevent misunderstandings or unresolved tension from growing into larger problems. While it's tempting to dismiss your gut when things are uncertain, avoiding the conversation can actually lead to bigger issues down the road: miscommunication, distance, and ultimately a breakdown in trust. On the other hand, listening to your gut and having those difficult conversations, even when uncomfortable, is one of the most effective ways to strengthen a relationship. It shows that you value the connection and are willing to face the truth, whatever that may be. It's also important to note that intuition is not just about sensing potential betrayal or dishonesty. It can also be about noticing when your own needs aren't being met, or when something is out of alignment in the relationship. Intuition is a compass that, if respected, can help both partners navigate towards a stronger, more balanced dynamic. A relationship built on mutual trust and openness can weather even the most difficult of conversations. The Roman philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not events that disturb people, but their judgments concerning them." This reinforces the idea that our emotional responses are often shaped by how we interpret the signals around us. When your gut is telling you something, it's not the feeling itself that causes distress. It's the way we interpret and react to it. By choosing to interpret these feelings as an opportunity for deeper understanding, rather than jumping to conclusions, we allow ourselves to grow alongside our partner and improve our relationship. In practice, listening to your intuition can also mean recognizing when something feels off, but not rushing to judgment. It's about gathering information through open dialogue, being patient with your feelings, and having the courage to voice them in a way that invites resolution. Instead of assuming the worst, approach your partner with the intention to understand. Ask questions, share your concerns, and give them space to express their perspective. Ultimately, trusting your gut doesn't mean living in a constant state of suspicion or doubt. It's about fostering a relationship where both parties feel heard, respected, and willing to face uncomfortable truths together. In doing so, you create a foundation of trust that can withstand the complexities of any relationship. While it's essential to approach your gut feelings with care, it's also important to recognize that trust issues in relationships can sometimes signal that things aren't as they should be. In cases where you notice subtle shifts in behavior, whether emotional withdrawal, inconsistent communication, or an increased sense of secrecy, these could be indications of larger problems at play. However, it's crucial to remember that these signs don't necessarily mean your partner is being dishonest or unfaithful. Every relationship is unique, and external pressures, emotional turmoil, or even misunderstandings can cause changes in behavior. What matters most is how you address these concerns. Rather than jumping to conclusions or letting anxiety drive your actions, use these moments as opportunities to open a dialogue. An honest conversation where you can share how you're feeling without making accusations is often the first step toward finding clarity and healing any rifts. Trusting your gut and communicating your feelings openly will always serve you better than staying silent or letting assumptions take root. If you're ready for more insights into how to foster better communication, build trust, and grow your relationship, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content on love, relationships, and personal growth. Stay curious, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next video.